Alec, Peirce, Vintage Scuba. Got something neat to show you today. The single hose regulator, which started in the late 50s, early 60s. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. There were single hose regulators around. Certainly by 1960. There were a couple before that, but they became, well known by the early 60s, and they started to replace double hose regulators by the mid 60s. By the early 70s, double hose regs were pretty much gone. The fact remains that single hose regulators are simply better. If they weren't better, they wouldn't have replaced double hose. So Rob, if you're watching this, don't give me a hard time. Single hose regulators are better for a simple reason. The consumer, the diver, decides what's best. So I'm going to show you this one in particular. It's kind of neat. This was made by Healthways. Now Healthways was a big company. There were 5 big companies in the beginnings of the scuba sport in the late 50s, early 60s through to the 70s. There were 5 big companies, and Healthways was one of the biggest. Yes, it was a monstrous company. Still in existence, actually. They don't sell scuba anymore. But they made incredibly good, high quality, innovative scuba equipment, very high quality and kind of leading edge. If you wanted the newest and the best, you went to Healthways and purchased a Healthway. And this is one of their regulars. This is called the Healthways AIRFLO. It's one word, AIRFLO, A-I-R-F-L-O, AIRFLO. And innovative in many, many ways. As you know, I get divers saying, I just bought a beautiful new regulator and it's nice, it's lightweight because the exhaust tee is made of plastic, like this one from the 60s. I'm going to get Kevin to put a picture of this regulator from the Healthways catalog. Synthetic exhaust tee, just like the brand new ones today. They wish to be made of chrome metal. This is much lighter. And some divers say, my new regulator is fantastic. The purge, the front of the regulator is soft, and I can just push it anywhere to purge, just like the AIRFLO 45 years ago. Rubber face on it, and you push anywhere on it and it purges. And it's nice you didn't find the button. It didn't catch on things. Sometimes those early buttons stuck out. You would catch kelp or a fishing line or things on it, not with the AIRFLO. So you see what I mean when I say that Healthways was very innovative. Now at the same time, it was made in the 60s. So it did have some 1960 technology, like a neck strap. Yeah, for some reason back then, I don't recall the reason, probably one of those things that instructors had passed down from them, but in those days, you had a neck strap around your neck like this, and it snapped over here, so the reg stayed right there by your neck all the time. Seems like a logical idea, doesn't it? Yeah, it seems like a neat idea. You can't lose it. If it came out of your mouth for some reason, it only fell a few inches and there it was. In training programs today, they don't have those. Regulators don't have these. A necklace is called. You can get them. You can actually buy them. But they don't use them. And they actually teach students how to recover the regulator, because today, when you take the regulator out of your mouth, or if it pops out of your mouth, it falls down behind you. And you have to be able to find it. So they actually teach divers today how to reach down and find the regulator. But this is 1960s, so some things are the way they are. And in the 60s, we had a necklace or a neck strap on the regulator. But the neatest thing about this particular regulator is not the second stage, it's the first stage. This is the first stage. Now you're going to say to me, oh, that's not a first stage, there's a few things missing. Well, as a matter of fact, there's more than a few things missing. There's a lot of things missing. This is, in my opinion, probably the simplest first stage ever made. Are you zooming in here, Kevin? Just watch this now. I'm going to take off this dust cap. Yes, this is a dust cap. This is exactly the same style of dust cap that you see on most regulators today. This little triangular piece of hard plastic that is clamped between the yoke screw and the filter with a cord attached to that little hole. There's a standard dust cap that this regulator uses. Well, what holds it in place? Well, when I say it's a standard dust cap, it looks like a standard dust cap, but it's not. If you look at the bottom side, there's the O-ring, same as all these dust caps, there's the spare O-ring, but there's a large hole in the middle, and that hole is threaded. That hole is threaded to fit over top of these threads. So, for you din lovers, doesn't this look like a din? Somewhat. It works a little bit like a din. Looks a little bit like a din. It's not a din. Din is very specific to the technology of that particular regulator attachment. But it's similar in that it's a screw-in fitting. There's no yoke or anything else. So it's pretty unique. Pretty as well. Pretty? and pretty unique. Anyway, so this is a complete set then. So there's the regulator, the airflow, the first stage, which is unique with that threaded fitting, and then you should have the original dust cap with the threads to fit and protect the regulator. Now, in order to make this work, you had to fit this to the tank. So here's a standard Healthways. It's a Healthways valve, and fits into any 3/4 inch tank. So your 72s were most common in the steel 72 cubic foot tank, 2250 psi was the most common tank for many, many years. But it's the same thread, same valve as fits into a current, a modern aluminum tank, be it an 80, 3000 psi 80 or whatever. Same valve. So this is a pretty standard valve. Safety disc at the back, on-off knob, and of course since this is from the 60s, it has that absolutely necessary J reserve, constant spring-loaded reserve, called the J reserve, so that when you ran out of air, you pull this down and you got an extra little bit of air. That's another story. We'll talk about that. But this valve is different. This valve is from Healthways, and this valve was specifically made to accommodate the Healthways airflow regulator. How is it different? Well, take a look. Can you get in there, Kevin? You're looking at the hole. I'll rotate it slightly. Can you see the hole, how it's large in the middle? Still has an O-ring seal, but you can see the threads in there maybe. I'm not sure if you can. Well, what are the threads for? Well, that should be obvious now if you've been following along here. Watch. I'm going to put this together there, you see? So when you're ready to go diving, you've got your Healthways tank with your Healthways airflow valve, and you take your dust cap off your airflow first stage and you're screwed in. I'm going to cheat. You can't do that, obviously. But you would take it and can you see this, Kevin? And you simply screw it in. And you screw it in snugly. And that first stage screws right in, right down to the O-ring, snug. That's on. Look at that. Isn't that slick? There you go. First and second stage. Turn the air on. As soon as you turn the air on, of course, now that first stage is sealed tightly to the valve, so it can't unscrew, can't come off, not without a lot of force. And the air is delivered to your second stage, and let's go diving, guys. I got my airflow on. Away we go. Just that easy. So there's a complete set. Airflow regulator, first stage, proper dust cap, and the proper valve that will accommodate it. What's this? This is a pressure gauge. We didn't have submersible pressure gauges. There are no ports on this first stage to attach a submersible pressure gauge. No port. We checked the air pressure in the tank before we went diving. And when we got out, we checked the air pressure remaining in the tank to see whether or not we had air left. Not really. In the old days, we learned very quickly, in fact, how to gauge how long our air would last based on the depth and your own personal body and temperature and current and all those things. And so we learned very quickly how to judge roughly how long our air would last. We didn't have dive computers, so we didn't know to the minute. We knew that roughly 20 minutes. So we'd have a watch, and in about 15 minutes, we'd start heading back to the surface. And in 20 minutes, our air would be pretty much out. But to check the tank, to see how much air was in the tank, if you had an airflow regulator and a Healthways airflow valve, you would get one of these. You see? There's that dust cap again. Yeah, that's the special Healthways threaded dust cap for the airflow regulator. And look, you see that? Same thing. So there's a pressure gauge made specifically for the Healthways airflow, let me get it in there, valve. And it screws in like so. Turn the air on. Oh yeah, I had air left, I'm okay. Turn it off. And this is the special release. When you started to turn the cap, it automatically released the air, and you could take it off. Just that easy. So there you go. The Healthways airflow from the, I'm going to guess, Kevin will look it up in the catalogs. We have all the catalogs. He does. Look it up in the catalogs and give you a rough idea. But there's a complete set. Healthways airflow regulator, Healthways airflow accommodating valve, and airflow pressure gauge. Pretty neat. You got to admit, even Rob, you got to admit, that is pretty neat. Yeah. single hose regulators are pretty cool. They really are. And there's a lot more. And I'll pick out certain ones that have tickled my fancy over the years and just might do the same for you. Things weren't completely backwards in the old days, you know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Alec, Peirce, Vintage Scuba. Talk to you real soon with some more neat stuff from the old days.